In this part of the training, we are going to proceed with implementing the remaining panel options for the toy car, which would allow the user to display the product on the screen, play a video, or display the dimensions and the package details for the product. Let's start with the first button, which will display the product. To do that, we need a camera that is going to rotate around the toy car continuously and to have the camera's feed or view displayed on the monitor in front of us. Let's begin by preparing the camera. From the VR Viewer menu, select Create VR Camera. As you can see, a camera with a stand has been added to the scene, and this camera can serve many purposes in a VR experience. It can be used for teleportation, large scene navigation, as well as a surveillance camera, which is what we need in this training. With the VR camera selected, press N on the keyboard to toggle object snapping, then click on the toy to position the camera at that location. Now drag and drop the VR camera from the objects tree to the 3D area to look through the camera. Now we can adjust the camera's view to make sure it is focusing on the toy car. Feel free to adjust the field of view of the camera from the Properties panel to the right. I think a value of around 40 or 45 should be fine. Collapse the object tree by clicking the minus icon, then with the camera selected, click the disconnect icon in the Properties panel to disconnect the VR camera's view and return to the default 3D area camera. The next task is to animate the camera's rotation around the car, and to do that, we need to change the camera's pivot location, since right now the pivot is at the center of the camera, and if we try to rotate the camera, it's going to turn around itself. So press 4 on the keyboard to access the pivot's transformation and position it at the center of the car. Now we need to rotate the pivot and try to have the green arrow as perpendicular as possible to the table's surface. Press 2 on the keyboard to transform the object, and now as you can see, if you were to rotate the camera, it is going to rotate around the new pivot, which is at the car's location. To animate the camera, set the red time slider to frame 60 and rotate the camera 120 degrees. Then set the frame to frame 120 and rotate the camera an additional 120 degrees in the same direction. For one last time, move the red time slider to frame 180 and rotate the camera 120 more degrees to cover a full 360 turnaround animation. You can now apply the VR camera and play the animation to check it out. Select the created keyframes and click on Create Animation Sequence. Name the sequence Camera Animation and click OK. Now we need to determine when is the camera going to start rotating around the object, so let's open the Training Builder and go to a new tab and rename it Camera. As for the event we are going to use, it would be the Scene Start event. This event will activate any responses attached to it the moment the scene starts, and since we want to display the product as the first option in the menu when the scene starts, then this makes it an ideal event for us. As for the response, add the play sequence response, then select the camera animation sequence we created, then attach it to the response. In the response options, you the ability to set the repetition of the animation to either loop or play once, set it to true to loop the animation, then attach the event to the response. We have successfully created an animated camera and set its event up in the Training Builder. What is left is to determine where the camera's view will be displayed, which is on the monitor that we have in the scene. From the VR Effects and Media menu, select Create Surveillance Plane. With the surveillance plane selected, press N on the keyboard and click at the middle of the monitor. Adjust the plane's position and orientation to match the monitor's surface. Now click on the white spheres at the sides of the plane and drag the arrows to stretch the plane and cover the whole monitor's surface. From the VR Surveillance Camera tab in the Properties panel to the right, click on Pick to determine which camera to attach the surveillance monitor. From the object tree, select the VR camera and click the check mark to confirm the selection. Now the attached camera's name will be displayed in the field. Run the VR experience to test it out. The surveillance camera is now broadcasting its view on the monitor, and any modifications we apply to the toy car will be updated instantaneously. The next thing to add is a video file to the monitor. There is an MP4 file that is provided along with the training materials that we are going to use. The video file is an overview of the toy car and explains the assembly order of its component, which we will go into in the next part of the training, but for now, we need to learn how to embed the video within the VR experience. Let's first select the VR surveillance plane and from the Object tab to the right, click the eye icon to hide it, or press H on the keyboard. The monitor has a black surface named blank and we are going to use that to play the video. Select the plane named blank and from the VR Effects and Media menu, select Make Video. Click the check mark to confirm the selection. In the VR Video tab from the Properties panel, you will have several options for the video. Let's first attach the video, so click on the Browse icon and navigate to the Training Files and select the video file. The first option is to play the video at the start of the VR experience, but since we're displaying the VR camera at the start of the scene, we do not want the video to play from the get-go, so let's disable this option. The interactive option allows the user to play and pause the video by interacting with it. The loop options plays the video again once it ends, and the mute option would disable the video's audio channel. The type options determines the type of the audio playback. If set to spatial, the audio sound will be emitted from the location of the video, and the further you move away from the video, the lower the volume gets, while if set to constant, then no matter where you are in the scene, the video's volume will remain constant. The range option determines the distance threshold at which the volume will drop to 0. Now that we have set up the video in addition to the VR camera, we need to be able to switch between the two views using the buttons on the panel. Select the Display Product button and open the Training Builder. Add a node triggered event and click Attach to attach the Display Product button. Let's go up one level in the tree to choose the component with the proper name, then attach it. Add a show and hide response, and from the object tree, select the VR surveillance plane that is currently hidden and click Attach, then connect the event to the response. Add another show and hide response, then from the object tree, select the plane blank which has a video embedded in it, and attach it to the response, but from the option in the response, set the task to hide instead of show, then connect it to the event as well. What we now have is a simple system where when the user triggers the Display Product button, the surveillance plane would appear, and the video would disappear. Next is to set up the system for the second button, which shows the video. Select the event and the two responses connected to it, and press Ctrl and C, then Ctrl and V on the keyboard to duplicate them. Click on the Video Demo button in the 3D area, then go back to the Training Builder and attach it as the trigger object in the duplicated event. As for the responses, we are going to switch their visibility so that the surveillance plane is set to hide, and the video is set to show. What remains is to also play the video once it's shown, so from the Responses section add a Video Action Response, then from the object tree to the left, select the video named blank and attach it to the response. Set the type to play and connect the response to the previous response or directly to the event. Now we have two events where the first one will show the surveillance plane and hide the video, and the other one would hide the surveillance plane and show the video and play it. Before running the VR experience, we need to set the default state of the planes, so select the video component named blank and press H on the keyboard to hide it, then select the surveillance plane and press S on the keyboard to show it, then run the VR experience to test it out. The next thing to do is to set up the two remaining buttons which will display info about the product on the monitor. Let's start with the Dimensions button. From the Create menu, select Text, then 2D Text. The 2D text generator enables you to write text in different styles and colors, then convert it to an image or a plane or a billboard. I'm going to clear the existing text and change the font, then add a background color. Something dark to help with the contrast is preferable. You can also set a border for the image if you want to. As for the size of the image, at the bottom left corner you will find the width and height of the image that would be produced, and to change it, you simply have to adjust the size of the dialog by dragging it from the bottom right corner. Since the monitor has almost an HD ratio of 16:9, I will try to set the dialog to the same ratio, so perhaps 1280 by 720 value would be fine. Similar to any text editor, start with a title and fill in the information in the arrangement that you see fit. Once you're satisfied with the result, click on the button named Plane to create a plane with the text. For the plane's placement, you need to set the top left corner then the bottom right corner, so let's try to get as close as possible to the first corner and click on the surface. Then go to the other corner and set the second point, then click OK in the dialog to create the plane. Feel free to adjust its position if it needs some tweaking. Double-click the plane's assembly name in the object tree to rename it and type Dimensions. Now for the package details creation. In the 2D text generator, add the package details. Once you're done, click on Plane, then set up the top left corner. Then the bottom right corner, then click OK to generate the package details plane. Rename the assembly to package instead of 2D text. Left-click the arrow next to the assembly to expand it, then select the plane geometry inside it. From the Materials tab in the Properties panel, set the material type to emitter. Emitter materials emit light themselves and appear clearly regardless of the VR experience lighting, so it's preferable to use them from messages and info boxes. Now that both planes are set to emitters and their placement is fine, what is left is to make the buttons that trigger them functional. Open the Training Builder. Then select the Dimensions button and add a node triggered event and attach the button to it. From the object tree, select the Dimensions plane, then add a Show and Hide response and attach it to it, then attach the response to the event. Now select the Package button and add another node triggered event and attach it to it. Then select the package plane and add a Show and Hide response and attach it to it, then connect the event to the response. Now what we need to do is to have each button show its related item and hide the other items, so if we trigger the product button, it has to show the VR camera and hide the video, the Dimensions plane and the package plane. So go to the event that shows the VR camera plane and add a Show and Hide response, then select the Dimensions plane and attach it to the response, and set the task to hide, then connect the response to the previous response. Duplicate the Show and Hide response and attach the package plane to it, then connect it to the previous response. Select the Dimensions and package response and duplicate them, then attach them to a response in the next node triggered event, which is the event that plays the video. As for the Dimensions button event, we needed to hide the package, the video, and the VR camera. So select the 3 hide responses from the previous event and duplicate them, then connect them to the Dimensions event system. As you can see, now we have a response that shows dimensions and a duplicate response that hides dimensions, which we should replace with the video. So click on the blank item from the above response to select the blank geometry which play the video, and from the response node that hides the dimensions, click Attach to replace it. Duplicate the 3 responses one more time and attach them to the last event system, which is the Package Details event. Again, the first response is to show the package, and there is another response that hides the package, which we need to replace with hiding the dimensions instead. So select the dimensions and attach it in place of the package to hide it. Close the training builder and hide both the dimensions plane and the package details plane by pressing H on the keyboard to make sure only the surveillance plane is visible, since that is the default state of the VR experience at runtime. Run the VR experience. In the next part of the training, we are going to learn how to disassemble and assemble the toys components in VR.